is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And first let me say that the winner of last week's viewer's favorite question was Gods and Ancestors from Quiscalus Mexicanus. Congratulations, Quiscalus Mexicanus, and thank you everyone for voting. And today our question comes to us from Magenta. And Magenta's question is this: are mixed Christian-pagan marriages common and successful in the Correllian community? And in answering this, I'm going to address not only the Correllian community, but the larger pagan community. And I also want to point out that the answer to this question also addresses another frequent question, which is, can one mix paganism and Christianity? Because the answer to both is pretty much the same answer. And the answer is this: it depends entirely upon your terms. What do you mean by Christian? And to some extent, what do you mean by pagan? In my experience, Christians come overall in two major groups. There are happy, love your neighbor, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, Jesus is just all right by me Christians. And there are we hate everything, everything must die Christians. And pagans have a similar split as well. There are really nice pagans and there are others who hate everything that moves. And if the nice Christians and the nice pagans get together, they usually get along just fine. If your idea of Christianity is the basic teachings attributed to Jesus, the idea of loving your neighbor, doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, turning the other cheek, etc., you're not really going to have a lot of problem with the philosophy of most pagans. If, on the other hand, you're a hellfire and brimstone Christian, you will. And this is true both in terms of mixed marriages and in terms of personal mixed practices. If you're taking from that first group, you're not going to have a lot of trouble mixing the ideas. If you're taking from the second, it's not going to work. When we talk about people who mix Christianity and paganism, it works just fine if we're talking about things like having Jesus as your personal divinity, or looking upon Jesus as a great philosopher, the teachings I've just referenced. It doesn't work nearly so well if you're including ideas like heaven and hell and damnation. They don't fit with paganism at all. But the philosophical teachings of the man Jesus, they fit just fine. And again, as I've said in other vlogs, all forms of God and Goddess are equally accurate and equally limiting. So if your preference for deity form is Christian-based, that really isn't necessarily a big problem, as long as you're not dragging into it other ideas like exclusivity of religion, etc. So it depends entirely what we mean. Now, when we talk about mixed marriages, are they common in the Correllian community? Well, yes, they're very common, and I know a lot of very happy instances where Christians and pagans are married and have no problem with one another. I've also known cases where it was a disaster. And this is true in the wider pagan community as well. I would say the larger number of pagans have Christian spouses versus pagan-pagan marriages. It depends, of course, entirely on when the person came to the religion. Also where they're living and the size of their local pagan community. But there are very many very happy mixed marriages and very many unhappy mixed marriages as well. And the difference depends on what kind of Christian we're talking about, and to a lesser extent, what kind of pagan. And if it is the kind of Christian who believes in love thy neighbor and all of that, there usually is no problem. If it's the kind of Christian who believes thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, it's going to be awfully hard to be in a mixed marriage with them. And by the same token, if it's the kind of pagan who believes all roads lead to the center, they're going to get along very well with their Christian spouse. If it's the kind of pagan who has a chip on their shoulder against all things Christian, it's not going to work very well. So it really depends on the people, it depends on their definitions, and it depends on the type of Christianity and the type of paganism we're talking about. So those would be my thoughts on the matter. I hope you find them helpful, and until next time, may you blessed be. Reverend Don, super omnibus of incantations and invocations for all occasions. Marianne Kay and I created this massive compendium of magic and artwork for you to use in any way that you would like. There are literally hundreds of spells and hundreds of illustrations, which can be mixed and matched and used in many different ways. Check it out now at witchghoulstore.com.